Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that. To dot the mountain road, I still remember how the mountains looked that night. Dark shapes against a deep blue sky, like sharp teeth waiting to bite the clouds. That trip was meant to be an escape, a way to clear my head after months of stress at work. I had quit my job in Denver 2 weeks before, packed my little silver Honda Civic with clothes, snacks, and a playlist of road trip songs. I told myself I would drive until I felt free. The plan was simple. Explore the Rocky Mountains, visit a few small towns, take pictures, maybe find a hiking trail or two. I wasn't planning on being out so late though. That wasn't the plan at all. By the time I left the last gas station, a dusty single pump stop, near a closed diner, I realized how quickly the sun had disappeared behind the mountains. There were no streetlights out here, and the roads were nothing but thin grey ribbons cutting through walls of trees. I had no cell service for the last 40 minutes, but I wasn't worried yet. Just a dead zone, I said to myself, rolling my shoulders to shake off the tension. My GPS had frozen on the screen 20 minutes ago. The little blue arrow stuck in the middle of nowhere. But according to the last direction, I was supposed to hit a highway turnoff soon. That turnoff never came. Instead, the two-lane road twisted deeper into the forest, and the gas needle dipped closer to empty. I checked the dashboard clock, 11:38 p.m. Great. The last hotel sign I had seen was miles back, and my stomach tightened with that quiet kind of panic that sneaks up when you realize you might be really alone. Okay, I told myself out loud because silence had started to feel like an enemy. Just get to the next gas station. Maybe they'll have a map. I finally spotted a faded green sign, Exit 19, Old Pine Road. It wasn't what I was looking for, but I took it anyway. The ramp curved down into even darker woods, and for a few seconds, my headlights caught nothing but trees and a thin strip of cracked pavement. When my tires hit the main road again, I expected to see a gas station glow in the distance. I saw nothing. Just darkness pressing in from both sides and a stretch of road that looked like it hadn't been maintained in decades. "This is stupid," I whispered. My voice sounded small. Still, I drove on because what else was I supposed to do? Turning back felt just as risky, like the road behind me might swallow me whole if I tried. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel and leaned forward, eyes darting between the pavement and the shadows of trees. And then I saw them. At first I thought they were deer, two pale shapes standing perfectly still, dead center in the lane. My foot eased off the gas as my brain tried to process what my eyes were seeing. Not deer men, two men standing side by side, facing my car like they had been waiting for me. My heart kicked hard in my chest. They weren't wearing uniforms. No reflective vests, just regular clothes, dark jeans, hoodie. Their faces were pale in my headlights, but their expressions were unreadable. "What the hell?" my whisper fogged. The glass. I slowed to a crawl. Part of me expected them to move aside, wave me through. They didn't. They just stood there, blocking the entire road. When my car came to a full stop, about 20 feet away, something deep inside me screamed too. Turn around. My instincts were clawing at me, louder than any rational thought. But I did what polite society drills into women's heads from birth. I rolled the window down an inch and tried to speak. "Hey, is everything okay?" My voice cracked on the last word. They didn't answer. One of them tilted his head slowly, like he was curious. Then they both started walking toward me. My pulse exploded in my ears. My fingers fumbled for the gear shift, sliding it into reverse as my eyes flicked between the approaching figures and the dark stretch of road behind me. One of them veered toward my side of the car, the other toward the passenger side. Their footsteps quickening. I slammed my foot on the gas in reverse, tires squealing on the cracked pavement. My seatbelt locked across my chest as my body jerked back, eyes glued to the rearview mirror. I didn't care if I hit a ditch. I just needed distance. That's when I saw the second guy, the one on the passenger side, move toward the trees and pick something up. A long, dark shape. My stomach flipped. "What the hell is that?" I whispered. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the wheels straight. Then it clicked. A spike strip, the kind police use during high-speed chases. Oh my God. My voice broke and adrenaline surged like fire through my veins. The guy on my side broke into a sprint. The other crouched, gripping the strip, ready to throw. I spun the wheel hard, backing into the shallow ditch with a violent jolt. Then I slammed into drive and floored it. Gravel spat against the undercarriage as my headlights cut through the trees. The car fishtailed, tires screaming for traction. But I straightened out and shot back toward the main road in the rearview mirror. I saw the man swing his arm and launch the strip. It hit the ground and slid fast, sparks skittering as metal. Teeth scraped pavement. It missed me by maybe 3 feet. I didn't breathe again until the curve swallowed them from view. The whole time, I kept thinking, don't stop, don't stop. If the car breaks down, you're dead. My hands hurt from gripping the wheel. My breath came in shallow gasps, like my lungs couldn't get enough air. I scanned the darkness for headlights. Any headlights, but the road stayed empty. Finally, like a lifeline tossed from the heavens, I saw the glow of an interstate sign. I gunned it up the ramp, tires thudding over cracks, and merged onto blessedly wider pavement. I checked my phone. No service. Come on, come on. My voice was raw. I drove for another 15 minutes before a single bar flickered to life. Then 2, then 3. I called 911, my hands trembling so hard I could barely hold the phone. The dispatcher's voice was calm, steady, grounding me as I spilled the story in gasping bursts. She promised to send a unit out, told me to get somewhere safe. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, whispering okay over and over like a prayer. I didn't stop until I saw the warm glow of a motel sign. Pineview Lodge. I pulled in so fast I nearly clipped the curb. The night clerk gave me a weird look. As I stumbled inside, shaking so hard I could barely sign the receipt. "Long drive?" he asked, trying for small talk. "Yeah," I croaked, voice shredded. "Something like that." I locked that door 3 times, drew the curtains, and sat on the edge of the bed with the TV on mute, staring at nothing while the shadows of the mountains pressed against the glass. I never heard back from the police. Not about suspects. Not about a spike strip in the road. Nothing. To this day, I don't know what those men wanted. Robbery, carjacking, something worse. What I do know is this. If I hadn't trusted that gut feeling when I did, if I had hesitated for even 5 more seconds, I might not be here to tell you this story. The camping treepee never Thought a weekend trip with friends would turn into the kind of memory that still makes my stomach knot years later. It started with a simple plan, a hiking trip to break away from the monotony of work and routine. I was 28 then, working a job that chained me to a desk for 9 hours a day, barely leaving me time for anything adventurous. Joining that outdoors group was my way of feeling alive again. The group started online, a bunch of strangers on Facebook who loved nature and shared pictures of mountain trails, kayaking trips, and snowboarding slopes. Over time, some of us started meeting in person. It wasn't a huge group, maybe 10 of us who talked regularly and met up when schedules aligned. For this trip, it ended up being just 4: me, Alex, Brianna, and Monica. We weren't best friends, but after a few previous trips together, we trusted each other enough to plan a weekend camping on a mountain trail in upstate Vermont. The timing seemed perfect, mid-October, when the full foliage turned everything into shades of red, orange, and gold. The weather forecast showed clear skies, cool nights, and a breeze that promised crisp air without the bite of early winter. We packed light, but carried the essentials: sleeping bags, 2 tents, portable stoves, snacks, water, and enough warm clothes to survive a chilly night. Alex and I took on the heavier load since we were the only guys. The tents, cooking gear, and extra water bottles ended up in our packs. Brianna and Monica brought food and lighter stuff. It felt fair, I remember. How upbeat we all were that morning, laughing as we loaded gear into Alex's SUV. "You sure this trail's not going to kill me?" Monica joked, adjusting her sunglasses. She was the smallest of the group, but the most competitive. "It's not Everest," Alex smirked, tossing his bag in the trunk. "If a kid can hike it, so can you." "Yeah. Well, remind me of that when I'm gasping halfway up," she shot back, rolling her eyes. The drive up was easy, the kind where conversation flowed and music filled the silence in between. We talked about everything: past trips, upcoming holidays, the kind of random stories that make hours on the road feel short by the time we reached the trailhead. The sun hung low enough to cast long golden beams through the trees. The air smelled like pine and earth, the kind of fresh that city life doesn't offer. "God, this is gorgeous," Brianna murmured as she stepped out of the car, her eyes sweeping over the endless trees painted in autumn colors. We took a few pictures before starting the hike, the sound of leaves crunching under our boots mixing with our chatter. The trail wasn't easy. It had steep climbs that made us sweat even in the cool weather, but the views made every aching muscle worth it. Hours passed quickly. The forest around us thickened as we moved deeper in, and the late afternoon sun painted everything in amber light. That's when Alex checked his watch and said, "We should stop soon. Losing light fast." He was right. Out here, darkness doesn't creep in slowly. It drops like a curtain. We picked a spot just off the trail, flat enough to pitch 2 tents. The ground was rocky, but we made do. Alex and I handled the tents while the girls gathered fallen branches for a fire. By the time the flames crackled, night was already swallowing the mountain. The temperature dipped sharply, and the fire became our only comfort against the chill. We sat in a loose circle, eating what we packed: granola, jerky, protein bars, apples. Nothing fancy, but it tasted amazing out there. Brianna was mid-story about her last snowboarding trip when it happened. A woman's scream so sharp and raw it sliced through the stillness. It echoed off the trees, distant but clear enough to freeze us in place. Every sound stopped: the crackle of fire, the rustle of wind in the leaves, even our breathing for a second. "What the hell was that?" Monica whispered, her voice barely audible. We looked at each other, faces lit orange by the fire, all silently asking the same question. Are we alone out here? The scream didn't repeat, but the silence that followed felt heavier than before. "Could have been an animal," Alex offered, though he didn't sound convinced. "Animals don't scream like that," Brianna shot back, hugging her knees. Before anyone could respond, another sound ripped through the air. A loud, sharp pop. Not a gunshot exactly, more like a burst. High-pitched, metallic, and unsettlingly close. That was enough for all of us. Alex kicked dirt over the fire, snuffing out the flames in a hiss of smoke. "Okay, nope. Fire's out. Everyone in the tents," he ordered, his voice low but firm. We didn't argue. We split fast, Alex and I in one tent, the girls in the other. Inside, the darkness felt suffocating. I slid into my sleeping bag, but there was no relaxing after that. My heart wouldn't slow down. Every rustle outside sounded magnified. Every creak of the tent fabric felt like a threat. An hour passed, maybe two. Alex was out cold, his steady breathing the only sound inside. I was still wide awake, staring at the thin nylon wall when I heard it. Another scream. This one was closer. So close it didn't echo. It pierced, higher pitched, frantic, like someone being hurt. I shot upright. "Alex," I hissed, shaking him hard. His eyes snapped open just as the scream died. We stared at each other, both pale in the faint light from the moon seeping through the tent. "What the hell is going on out there?" he whispered. Before I could answer, footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching over gravelly ground, coming closer. I froze, my skin crawled as the sound stopped right outside our tent. "Brianna," I called softly. No answer. "Monica," Alex tried. Nothing. The silence stretched for 2 heartbeats, 3. Then the tent shook violently. Someone or something was shaking it like they wanted to rip it apart. "Holy shit," Alex yelped. I felt the whole frame bow under the force. We both screamed, and from the other tent came Brianna and Monica's terrified cries. "What do we do?" Alex hissed. "On 3, we go out swinging," I barked, fumbling for anything that could work as a weapon. 1, 2, the shaking stopped. We froze, ears straining in the silence. My pulse thudded so hard it drowned out every other sound. 3, I yelled anyway and tore the zipper open. Cold night air slapped my face as Alex and I crawled out, ready to fight, but there was no one there. Just trees, darkness, the moon casting silver light on empty ground. "Grab the girls. We're leaving now," Alex said, voice trembling but decisive. We sprinted to their tent, yanking zippers open. They were already dressed, packs slung on their shoulders, eyes wide with terror. We grabbed our gear, left the tents, left the sleeping bags, and plunged into the darkness. No flashlights, no talking, just the crunch of boots on dirt as we tore. Down the trail, guided by the ghostly glow of the moon. Every sound behind us felt like footsteps. Every snap of a branch made me whip my head around, expecting to see someone or something coming after us. We didn't stop, not really, just enough to gulp air before pushing on. Hours blurred, my legs felt like fire, my throat was raw from the cold air and fear choking it. When the parking lot finally appeared, a black patch breaking the endless trees, I nearly collapsed. Alex drove. None of us spoke for 20 minutes. Not until we found a gas station parked under fluorescent lights and sat in stunned silence. Then, slowly, words tumbled out. "What the hell was that?" Brianna whispered. No one had an answer. We slept in the car, all of us crammed together like scared kids. By the time we woke, it was noon. We drove home without saying much, but that night replayed in my head over and over. I checked the news for days, searching for reports of attacks, missing hikers, anything. There was nothing. It's been years, and I still can't explain it. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear that scream again, raw, broken, and far too human to forget. Uncle Adrian's mountain eye. Always knew something about my Uncle Adrian was wired differently. He wasn't just the adventurous type, he was addicted to risk the way most people get addicted to caffeine or sugar. Growing up, I used to sit at family gatherings and listen to him talk about his insane stunts, bungee jumping off bridges, skydiving without a tandem instructor, even base jumping from skyscrapers in Europe. Every time, my mum would scold him like a child, reminding him about his heart condition and the medications he'd been taking since his early 30s. But Adrian would just laugh it off and say, "If I'm going out with a hell of a view." Adrian wasn't married, didn't have kids, and had enough savings from his photography gigs to fund these death-defying hobbies. He was the kind of guy who lived on adrenaline and mountain air. And then, when I was 10, he announced he was going to climb Kanchenjunga, the third highest peak in the world, tucked away on the border of India and Nepal. Everyone thought he was joking. My grandma nearly had a heart attack. "Adrian," my mum said, her voice sharp with panic, "you're on 3 different medications. Do you even know what that altitude will do to you?" "Yeah," he grinned, tossing a climbing rope over his shoulder like a scarf. "It'll make me feel alive." But something changed after that trip. It wasn't immediate. It was subtle at first. He came back, thinner, quieter, his eyes heavier. He didn't tell us much beyond it was tough, didn't make it to the top, and that was it. For a man who could talk for hours about how wind felt on a skyscraper rooftop, his silence about Kanchenjunga spoke louder than any story. It wasn't until 5 years later, when I was 15, that he finally told me what happened. We were sitting on his porch in Colorado, watching the sun dip behind the Rockies. He had a beer in his hand, and his fingers trembled slightly as he lifted it. When I asked him about the mountain, he gave me this long look, like he was deciding whether to lie or not. Then he said, "You sure you want to hear this, kid? Because once you do, you can't unknow it." I nodded, and that's when he told me the story that would haunt me for the rest of my life. "I went alone," he began, eyes fixed on the horizon. "That was my first mistake." "Wait, you didn't go with a guide?" I asked, shocked. Even I knew that was suicide. He smirked bitterly. "Guides slow you down." I wanted the climb to feel pure. Apparently, he'd flown into Kathmandu, hired a porter to help him haul gear up to base camp, and spent a day acclimatizing before starting his ascent. The first few days were manageable, he said, brutal on the lungs, but nothing unexpected. He described the crunch of ice under his crampons, the white expanse stretching endlessly in every direction. The kind of silence that makes you feel like God forgot about you. But then he reached the death zone, that unforgiving stretch above. 8,000 meters where oxygen thins out and human bodies begin shutting down. That's where things started to unravel. People think they're prepared for it, he told me. They're not. You can't prepare for your own brain turning against you. On his second day in the death zone, Adrian stopped to rest on a narrow ridge. His legs felt like concrete, his head like a balloon filled with static. The wind screamed so loud it felt alive, like it had teeth. That's when he saw it, his first dead body. It was wedged in a crack of ice, he said quietly. Bright green jacket, frozen stiff. The face was God. It didn't even look human anymore. Just this black hole where the mouth used to be. He laughed bitterly, but there was no humor in it. You know what the worst part was? The boots. They were perfect, brand new, like he thought he'd conquer the world in those boots. That sight shook him more than he expected. Suddenly, every step felt heavier. The air seemed thinner. His heart pounded harder. He sat down for what felt like a minute, but was probably an hour, talking to himself, just to stay sane. His vision blurred, his thoughts looped. He knew he wasn't going to make the summit, so I turned around, he said. Best decision of my life, or so I thought. As he descended, the wind picked up, flinging shards of ice into his face. He focused on his breathing. In, out, keep moving. Suddenly, a figure appeared ahead of him. A climber in a bright orange jacket, goggles glinting in the sun, smiling like this was all a joke. He claps me on the shoulder and says, "Come on, man. Summit's right there." Adrian mimicked the voice, high and cheerful, like they were hiking some nature trail. Adrian told him he was done, that he needed to get back before he blacked out. The man just grinned wider. "Don't quit now," the stranger said. "You came all this way. You don't want to die wondering, do you?" His voice was strange, hollow, echoing like it was coming through a tunnel. Adrian shook his head and kept moving down. But every few minutes, when he glanced back, the man was there. Same grin, same hand waving him up. No footprints in the snow. "I thought maybe I was hallucinating," Adrian admitted. "Lack of oxygen, no meds in my system. Yeah, I was off everything. Thought I'd feel sharper that way." He gave a bitter laugh. Big mistake. The man followed him for what felt like hours. Adrian tried ignoring him, tried talking to him. Finally, he snapped, turned around, and yelled, "Leave me the hell alone." The man tilted his head, smiling like a wolf, and said, "Watch this." Then he stepped sideways off the edge of the ridge and vanished. Adrian scrambled to the ledge, expecting to see a body tumbling down the slope. There was nothing, no tracks, no sound, just endless white swallowing everything. "That's when I ran," Adrian whispered. "I didn't stop, didn't look back." Next thing I remember, I woke up in a clinic at base camp. Some Sherpas found me past. Out on the trail, he took a long sip of his beer, hands shaking harder now. "When I got home, I did some digging," he said. "Turns out a young climber died on Kanchenjunga that same week. Solo attempt, fell near the death zone. The kicker. He looked exactly like the guy I saw." My mouth went dry. "Maybe you read about him before the climb." He shook his head slowly. "No reports until days after I got back. And even then, how do you explain him talking to me?" Silence hung between us, like a storm cloud. Finally, Adrian said, almost to himself, "Sometimes I wonder if he wanted me to follow him. If I had, maybe I wouldn't have come back either." Adrian never climbed again. He still hikes, still camps. But the daredevil who once laughed in the face of death now triple checks weather forecasts before leaving his driveway. Sometimes, when he drinks too much, he mutters to himself, staring at nothing, "Don't quit now. Summit's right there." I pretend not to hear, and me, I can't stop thinking about that mountain, about the way it changes people, about how some ghosts don't haunt houses, they haunt the places where they died, waiting for the next fool to wander by.